We'll call to order the Cottage Grove Parks Recreation and Natural Resources Commission. The mission of the Cottage Grove Parks Recreation, The mission of the Cottage Grove Parks Recreation Department is to create and promote policies, programs, and places that enable active living for a more vibrant community. Roll call.
Taken.
All right. Can you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All
right. Everybody have a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from February 10th?
Yes.
All right, we'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion to approve.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Open forum.
Appears to be none tonight.
Okay, so action items. Start with Peterson, Roger and Myra Park namings. This will be the second time this comes before us.
Correct. Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Yes, this will be the second review, and following the park naming policy, the first meeting, the application is received, and the commission can give guidance on whether that's a meritable application, and if there's any additional information that you request from staff to retrieve. I don't believe I had any, so I'm bringing it back for the second time. The mayor was here to speak the last time on it, just to refresh your memory. The application is in the packet with the memo, or is in the memo in the packet. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have. There's no formal action needed tonight, because you do need at least 2 reviews before taking action. So the formal action would happen either in June or in August if the commission so chooses.
Comments or questions? Did anyone have a preference between Peterson Park or Roger and Myra Peterson Park?
I think we named the Denzer Park with the first names of a couple with Denzer. Is that correct?
Correct.
I think we could be kind of consistent with that and add the Roger and Myra, especially since both people made several contributions to the community.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to the East Ravine Park planning.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. This is also the second time we're reviewing this item. I did get some good guidance from the commission to bring some items back so that you guys could further review the East Ravine Master Plan, Park and Trail Master Plan, and give some guidance to the City Council on that. So in the packet, I did include some information on whether public school intends to be part of the development area. Right now, the staff response has been that there is no intent for that. I included the natural resources inventory, also included the previous commission memo, and also the East Ravine Park and Trail Master Plan itself is in there. And then there was a response from the Community Development Director on land use. There was a question about high density versus low density, low and medium density. So I just included that verbatim from the Community Development Director. And then I went further and provided my own recommendations of what perhaps the commission could, just to try to ease the burden on it's a big master plan, right? There's a lot in there. There's a lot of anticipation with what future use might be and how development might occur. And I understand that that's hard to break down. So I try to provide some professional opinions on the backside of that to give you some options to consider. So I did write those out for each site. And I think what you'll find is my message is, plan for parks within that 10-minute walk, and then you can always work back from there depending on how the official plan develops. Obviously, if there's a retirement community with its own pickleball courts and pool, we probably aren't going to have a neighborhood park in that area, right? So it all depends on development, but start with assuming the densities that are in the comprehensive plan and whatnot, and then kind of work back from there is what my suggestion would be. But I did make some suggestions of things that we could be considering as the plan evolves and as development occurs. So just know that, again, those are just my opinions. And I would say I'm certainly open to feedback on any of those suggestions in there. So there are a couple corrections, obviously, in Site E, it says there's a misspelling on the word site, and then on the very last paragraph, it says a 10-mile walk. It's actually a 10-minute walk, as I just mentioned, so we will get those corrected. So again, just a review of that, and we don't need formal action tonight, but council is looking for some feedback from the Parks Commission, so if we can clear this up tonight, or if it takes another meeting, that's fine too, but just looking for the commission response to this memo.
Mr. Brown?
Thinking about the trails, the two trail segments connecting Parks E and F, there was a suggestion to downgrade or remove the western trail in there. And when I learned that there will be sidewalks on at least one side of the street throughout the neighborhood, that made me feel a little bit more comfortable with that idea to help save on some of the land acquisition costs for some of the other areas. So that was a cost-saving idea that I thought that I would feel comfortable supporting. Looking at sites E and F, I kind of like the idea of making those mini parks rather than like neighborhood parks. But one area that I'm a little bit concerned with is safe crossings. Because if there's good access to, especially the community park, which I think we should prioritize, I'm a little more comfortable with reducing the size of the neighborhood parks just because there'd be good access to that, but only if those crossings can be safe, especially if we could have some of those, like the blinky light ones like we have by Joliet and on the Trailway corridor when it crosses Hinton. I think there's one other one, but something like that to make the service area really meet everybody's needs so they have those safe crossing areas. And I don't know if that's something we need to talk to public safety about, but just the area of concern.
No, it's something that we can certainly make mention of, something along the lines of, the trail system can certainly offer the opportunity to do less in the parks. Obviously, if you can get people to different parks and and the community park, if the travel is safe, right? So we'll just mention that should be a priority.
Yeah.
So Zach, if I understood what you wrote here correctly, what we're really trying to do is give council our view on prioritization.
Yes.
And I think it would help me if we could see the map and then talk about each of these sites just a little bit, if that wouldn't be too much trouble. And I like the idea of, because we're not going to decide to recommend fewer parks. I don't think these four people are going to decide that. But I like giving council our view on prioritization. That feels very responsible and like a good thing to do. So that's the one I was thinking about. Yep. Thank you.
Would you like me to walk through these?
Or walk through the changes you are making in the plan, right? That's what you're asking us. We could decide tonight or we don't have to, but, right, which is on in your memo from February 24th. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, so just starting from the top, site AB is actually the community park. Can you see my cursor when I move it here?
Yep.
So that's the community park around Vandenberg Lake. That is going to be the top priority for the East Ravine in general, just because obviously the high quality water recreational opportunity, and then there's flat space around in those crop fields over there to develop active park portions. This is already starting to change a little bit as we're forecasting development. There's some steeper slopes up here, and there's some flatter land over here, and it sounds like we're even looking at East Ravine Parkway. The original intent was for that parkway to come in and make connection with the park, but as you start to look at the way things lay out, the question becomes is how many people are actually going to drive East Ravine Parkway when they're really trying to get west to this site here. So this road is probably going to end up coming through here instead of connecting all the way out to the park. Although it would have been a pretty drive, it probably wasn't a very useful drive. So that's probably a good decision, but when that park changes, or when that parkway changes, that allows us to change the shape of this park a little bit too, and maybe the active portion stays more down here. And then we just focus on the lakeside up here. So that park is already kind of shifting a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of recommendation there other than just making sure we protect the natural resources, the lake, the surrounding areas, and making that the priority. We did not address parks C and D, just because they're north of 70th here and they're not really in the study area at the moment. Site E is, not sure how familiar you are with driving Keats Avenue, but there's a large knoll there in the middle of the cornfield. It's actually split between the two agricultural field owners there. It splits the property, you can almost see the line going right through it. So that's where a water tower site would go, just because of gravity, right? So it'll be up elevated and then gravity can feed it. So much like Meadowgrass Park off of 70th and Meadowgrass Avenue, you need some land to get the water tower, so it makes some sense to complement that with a small neighborhood park around it, which should be an efficient use of the property, and in terms of the park trust, that park dedication fees should be efficient in terms of minimal land acquisition, but you can still get a playground, a small picnic shelter, a small recreational area for activities. So kind of considered a low priority site, but obviously it makes a good connection. And if the community park is way down here on the south end, it probably makes sense to have, a small neighborhood park up there for those families up there. Site F, again, probably a lower priority site, definitely a lower priority site than the community park, but you can see how, roads will start to cut off flow to some of these parks, some pedestrian flow to these parks, so that's why that park is in there. It's also meant to be a kind of a trail hub as the trails to the east and the west come together. I think I mentioned, this could also be a mini park or maybe even a homeowners association park. We've seen that happen before in areas like Eastbrook and also Bailey's Point. So that could happen as well. There's minimal natural resources there. Right now it's just an open field. So that was just put in there purely as a logistical area for people to gather. Again, depends on what type of development. If there's apartment complex and townhomes, we probably want to park there. Whether it's association owned or city owned is a different question, but you have a lot of people in a smaller area. You want to make sure you take care of those recreational needs. And then moving down to Site G, that's on the south side of 80th Street. Again, more because it's segregated from the rest of these other park areas. Crossing 80th Street would certainly be an obstacle. Crossing County Road 19 would certainly be an obstacle. So if there's a large neighborhood here, we would probably want to service them with a park area. So, because access to the Ravine Park obviously is nice, but that is a long run to any active recreational area down to the lake over here. So, and then the trails, again, we talked about really, you could perhaps remove one of these, but one of them is a gas line, so there's probably going to be a open space there anyways. And then it's a matter of how does the neighborhood lay out and do we need both trails or not? So, does that help?
Very much. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, Zach.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Did you, well, I was just gonna, I'm concerned about a couple things. One, I like everything you've done here, but I'm concerned about a vote tonight with only 4 of us here. I'm also concerned because June, we're gonna be touring, so we're not gonna be able to talk to the rest of the commission members. But then we don't meet in July, so now we're to August before we get a recommendation to council, and I don't like that either. So I'm inclined to vote tonight, but I'd like to, before I make a motion, I'd just like to see if other commission members have any comments about that.
Well, we don't know yet if we're touring in June, because we haven't talked about that one yet. We could still talk.
Right, I understand that. Yep, I'm just pointing that out, is all. Yep.
Any other comments or? I will say I do like the prioritization of the bigger park and the trails. The connectivity is very important to me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the E, how close is it to that other little, what is that, a pond or runoff into the lake?
Commissioner Glassford, that is a watershed area, so it could be It could be a wet wetland or it could be a dry wetland. We're not sure yet, but it'll definitely be a low basin area.
But how close is like that area, I guess?
So E is the elevated park.
Okay,
And then it would come down from there, and then there's, below that is a basin. So it wouldn't really be incorporated into that. Other than the trail running along the side of it, just because there's gonna need to be land acquired to make that a watershed area. So with that, so we shouldn't have to acquire land to build the trail. That's why that trail runs on that side. And that's really why the trail split there, was the west side is actually a natural gas pipeline, and then the east side runs along the watershed, so we probably don't need to buy any land to make those two trails, but we'd have to negotiate to get the trails paved. But
Okay. The one thing I would make a comment on is reading that survey on the wildlife and the trees and stuff. I was really surprised that we had that many very old trees over in this section. And I assume we would be trying to preserve because I couldn't tell, partially because I'm very colorblind, so I can't see the red on the black at all. But I couldn't tell from reading it where those trees, the really old ones, were related to the parks we're proposing.
most
Or
of them
if they
are,
would
most of them
be-
are in that community park.
Okay,
And the northern side of the community park on Vandenberg Lake is intended to be a natural habitat area with minimal active recreation at all. Probably natural hiking, and doing some habitat restoration programs, but it is not intended to be an active area where we'll be removing a lot of trees.
okay. Well, that's great then. So do we, as a commission, decide if we want to take a vote on accepting your recommendations, or do we look to table this?
Yes, we do.
Do you have a recommendation?
So I'll make a motion that we follow staff recommendation and add the language as an addendum to the East Ravine Park and Trails Master Plan as outlined, correspondence from March 10th, 2025, as Zach proposed and just summarized for us.
Second?
I'm getting to that page. I just want to check it over one more time.
And motion second, and then one more option for discussion, and then go for approval.
Page 71, no. This is a very big packet.
We can get the second, and then if there's further discussion.
Okay, second,
Oh, we have a second, Susie?
Any discussion?
do we have to know about Site G yet? Is that included in the current conversation that council's having? Or is it mostly around E, F, A, and B?
Commissioner Brown, mostly, the priority right now is that center area of E, F, A, B, E, and F.
Then I'd like to leave Site G out of it if we could, because maybe development and like cost of things will change. That seems to happen a lot, and sometimes it takes a long time for stuff to get developed, and maybe we wouldn't need to change anything about Site G between now and then.
Just to clarify, Commissioner, it's not changing, it's saying that if the development calls for it, it could be reduced to a mini park, not necessarily that it would be reduced to a mini park. I don't know if that helps.
But we could not even consider it yet if we don't
True.
have to.
True.
I would also offer, it's not our decision, that particular decision isn't ours, that's council's.
Well, yeah, but if we're offering like our input on it, I'd rather not input that we shrink things that we might not need to shrink yet.
I will say that will come up before the other sites to the north of 70th Street.
Like C and D.
And it's a potential, just because it's the same landowner as sites E and F. It certainly could come up, it could come up before sites E and F theoretically. So it might be worth putting it in there, but if you want to change the language, I certainly welcome the commission to change it to whatever you think the recommendation should be. But I do think it should probably stay in there,
Okay,
some sort of recommendation on that site.
because it's already saying like it's not, there's a potential either way,
Yeah.
is really what it's saying. We just, right now we're saying like, okay, there's that potential, And there'll be future discussion on it later, is from what I understand.
Right. And just because it is that same, I mean, it's the site right here.
Yeah.
Just because it's that same landowner as across 80th, I think we should probably have a recommendation on that. Even if the recommendation is to keep it as it is.
I like that.
I would support keeping it as it is too, just because, well, we're all going into budgets, and it's always easy to say, well, they're offering this up, and
So remove, so there's an amendment to remove site G from the recommendations, is that what I'm hearing?
go ahead.
To leave site G as, like, recommended to keep it as a neighborhood park, like everything but that last sentence.
Gotcha. So Commissioner Brown has made a motion to amend to that. Do we have a second on that?
I second.
Any further discussion on the whole motion?
So just to clarify, the motion and the second for amendment is to keep the language in site G, but remove the last sentence of site G. Everything else remains the same as is. So one more call for discussion and then take a vote, please.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
It's a good amendment. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next up, June meeting.
Yes, Chair, members of the commission, typically in June, we do an off-site meeting somewhere, non-televised. Last year, we did the grand opening of Glacial Valley Park. Many years prior to that, we did a bus tour. We do not have any grand openings planned for this year, so I offer up the bus tour. I offer up the opportunity to just meet in a park. We've done that before, just meet at a park in lawn chairs, or meet right here in the council chambers like we normally do. So, or any other options you all might have. So just offering up something different to get us out of the out of old habit.
All right, Commissioner Olson.
So is that really a beaver dam at the south end of the pond at Hamlet Park?
It is.
I'd like that included in the tour.
Well, hopefully the beavers may not be there anymore.
Other suggestions?
I definitely like the idea of meeting out of here. If we didn't have a lot of things on our agenda, I would would like to maybe consider a working meeting where we clean up a park or trail. If we don't have enough stuff to talk about.
So we could pick a meeting location, and then yes, if there's not a deep agenda, or if it's a small agenda, we take care of the small agenda and then go up and pick up a park or whatever it might be.
I think that would be fun.
If we're looking for tour locations, some of the spots that I'd like to see would be, was it 2 or 3 years ago, it's that park, it's not adjacent to Peter Thompson, but it was that
Still ponds.
Still Ponds. Has that been developed further? And
Nope.
the path going back in there?
No, other than we cut a natural path through there, but nothing else has been developed.
I like that one, so, no, that's good. But, if nothing else has changed then since the last time I walked back there last year.
Yeah,
then
not
okay.
really, other than more homes built.
Is there ways to access the lake in this East Ravine plan? Where Park A and B would be? Are there ways to,
Today, no,
today? No?
no.
Okay.
It's
Well,
all-
in case I like the idea of cleaning up a park. By a beaver dam or
Yeah. If the commission would like to do that, we can pick a park. Staff can work on picking a park, and if, I'll run it by the commission and by email, and if you guys don't like that, we can always change it up.
Or was your heart set on a bus ride, Dave? Did you want a bus ride?
No, I'm fine with cleaning up a park too.
All right. I got my guidance, thank you.
All right. Presentations,
None tonight?
action items, action updates.
Yeah, just a handful of updates on items that the commission has worked on not too long ago. Denzer Park, So we did end up ordering the playground and the picnic shelter and did some initial grading. Actually, we got the site pretty much to grade. But then an apartment complex that we thought was going to be developed didn't happen. They kind of pulled out at the last minute. And then the housing area behind it also was a little bit delayed. So they probably won't be moving in that home, and they probably won't be moving in those homes until maybe next spring, maybe this fall, but probably next spring. So we'd be building a park in the middle of nowhere. So council was wise and made the decision to push that park back a little bit. So we're gonna do a few things to put it to rest. So we're gonna build the boulder retaining wall just because there's that big pile of dirt up there and it'll wash away if we don't do something with it. So we'll build a retaining wall. We'll top dress not top dress. We will seed it and blanket it, or hydro mulch it. And trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it, to kind of put it to rest. And then that also gives us the opportunity as staff, if we can free up some time with some people that can operate equipment in-house, we might be able to cut some trails in, rock them, maybe even pave them, depending on, but when we're afforded the ability to be flexible, that kind of helps us to do some of those things. So we'll play that by ear. So just know that project's a little bit delayed, but I would expect that to be in probably next year. Granada Park, we did talk about the pickleball courts and the concerns from the neighborhood resident. He also approached the Public Services Commission, and after meeting with the Public Services Commission, it was decided that we could cut in a small parking lot there. I think it's 12 stalls. So we're gonna actually build that in-house between the Streets Department and the Parks Department, so we'll start cutting that in here soon. You may have seen we took down a large tree over there to kind of start that process. So that parking lot will go in and hopefully ease some of those parking lot restrictions. Not to mention that we are moving forward with building those Woodridge Park, that we're rebuilding the ice rink in there, and we'll add 5 pickleball courts in there, especially now that we have the new sports lighting. So we'll have 5 lit pickleball courts there, so that'll be nice. And then, so we have additional pickleball courts as well. That should ease some of that burden. Moving on to the Cottage Grove Trailway corridor restoration, that project continues. We did have some challenges with getting our burn permit. There's some large piles. So this is the area under the power lines between Hinton Avenue to the west and Imperial Avenue to the east. We have gotten some complaints from the neighbors. There's huge piles of trees that we've taken down, and our hope was to burn those this year, and we didn't get the burn permit like we had hoped, so now we're gonna have to put them in smaller piles and try to burn them. Chipping and hauling, it gets real expensive, like tens of thousands of dollars more than it is to burn it. So we gotta try to figure out a way to hack away at this. Best time to burn those brush piles is really in the winter. So this is a little bit of a challenge for us. And obviously right now is a terrible time to burn anything. So we won't be burning anything anytime soon, but that's the approach. So if you hear from neighbors or people concerned, it is a habitat restoration project, so we're still, we'll get some seed in the ground this year. We planted some trees, some nut-producing and berry-producing trees, amongst other, normal deciduous and coniferous trees. So we're moving in the right direction. It's just that debris that's left behind makes it look like a little bit of a wreck site. So, but we'll get there. We'll get that cleaned up. Oltman Park, City Council did authorize plans and specifications and went out to bid. That bid actually opens, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe tomorrow. The bids open up. So if those bids are favorable, we hope council will accept that, and we'll build those 3 rectangular fields over there, along with the playground and the small picnic shelter and some trails there. So that park's been a long time coming, since I think the school opened up in 2014, maybe. That land's been sitting there waiting to be developed, and I know we've gotten several calls from the residents around there of when do we get our park. So it's been a while, and let's hope those bids come in favorable this week. Mississippi Dunes Park, no real change there. We did notify the commission before that we did get a grant agreement for the fishing pier, and then we're working on it from the fisheries, and then with the Parks and Trails, the DNR Parks and Trails, we're working on getting the boat launch, the actual physical boat launch at the bottom. We would still have to build a road and a parking lot to get them there. But the bigger message is, and I included in the packet, was we applied for the 3M Priority 2 settlement funds. We applied for $5 million from that program. So that'll get reviewed, and we're supposed to hear back in June, maybe July, in terms of if we make it to the next level. If you make it to the next level, then you have to put a formal application together. This first round was just a request for proposals. But we put together a pretty detailed one, so we're kind of set for the actual application right away as soon as that comes out, so. I think hopefully we're in good shape there to get some funding. It was a little bit of a challenge to figure out what to apply for, because, the grant in the proposal, as you may have read, it says, don't apply for anything that has alternative funding sources. Well, in the Parks and Rec world, that could be anything. Most things can get funding through alternative funding sources, so I wasn't sure what to apply for, so I just I put everything in there except for the building, because it specifically said you couldn't do the building, so we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. And then the last thing is the Kingston Park building. We are almost at 100% completion on the designs for that. The original plan was to go out to bid this fall. Right now, council has suggested putting a hold on that just because of the economy and prioritizing the projects we have with Oltman and Denzer Park and everything else, and other new parks that are in Roberts Lake that are coming online. So right now, we're still proceeding, and we're getting the plans and specifications complete. Once that's done, then it'll be up to council to decide when we actually go out to bid for that project. So again, still marching in the right direction, but just in a holding pattern on when we'll actually bid the project. But you will see power going in. They started the power work last week, so they're going to add all that the new power source, and then add in power source sources for vendors or park users in the light poles around the parking lot. And there's also going to be quite a few extra parking lights there too, so that'll help security as well.
Little hammock thing at the park gonna get fixed?
The hammock?
Yeah, Kingston, that little like swing thing? It's like
Yeah, is it broke?
Yeah, it's broken.
Yep, it will.
Well, now.
I noticed this weekend.
It must have just broke. I'm there all the time and I didn't notice
Oh,
it,
yeah.
so. Yep. So that's all my updates.
Any questions for Zach on the action items? Updates, action items. Donations?
None tonight, but I have a few that we'll have for the next meeting. I think we had 3 benches come in this last month, so it's just not quite official yet, but I should have them next month.
Okay. Staff reports.
I do have reports for the different Park and Recreation divisions, as well as the Priority 2 settlement information that I supplied you of what we applied for there. So just if you have questions, I'm here to answer.
Do we have an anticipated date that we'll have the paddle boat at Highlands Park?
Looks like tomorrow.
There's a dock, so.
The calendar says tomorrow that I'm looking at.
Yes, tomorrow, May 13th, is paddleboat opening. Most of you probably know we did open the splash pad early, so that opened last Friday, May 9th. And then tentatively scheduled kayaks will open next Thursday, May 22nd, but it's a little rough down there. She's a little muddy, so we're still debating as staff on what to do to handle that. But yeah, paddleboat goes in tomorrow morning.
Yay, thanks.
Did the logs on the island up there get removed from like? the
Yes.
little- Awesome.
That was a big, that was, our park staff got that done, which, yeah, that was a big deal. They were
Yeah, they're huge.
massive. And we didn't have much snow this year, so I'm hoping that no more rolled up in the spring.
I'll be out there this weekend. I'll check.
All right.
Mr. Olson?
What about that pile of spoils from the dredging down at Hamlet Pond? What's going to be the disposition on that?
Yes, I'll have Jim address that. He's more well-rehearsed in that area than me.
Commissioner Olson, yes. So what happened is it warmed up too fast when they were doing it, so they didn't want to wreck that brand-new trail. So if it's a dry summer, they may haul that out this summer. Otherwise, they'll wait for it to freeze up next year, and then they'll haul all of that out. Along with that, that project came in under budget, so they are going to do a little bit more restoration from the high water level that we had, where it kind of eroded the banks from that spoil pile going up towards the boardwalk and then up towards 80th Street. So they're going to kind of clean up those shoulders along there as part of that project now.
Thanks.
Yep. More questions or comments? The staff reports? Commission comments, Washington County Park Board meetings.
Is what it is.
No questions? Okay. Council comments, Councilman Clausen?
Thank you. Just a couple notes I'll add. The city is happy we finally have hired a city engineer. We've been out without an engineer for quite some time. And Paul Sponholz is his name. I think he should be coming. We've asked him to start as soon as he possibly can, which I think is the first part of June. With regard to the parks, you still on the screen there, with specific to location F, I know we've received, one developer has interest in the area. He gave a presentation last month. We've asked him to go back and kind of redesign some roads, and we talked about Park F, and maybe if it could be incorporated into their design, if it would be just for their development homes only, but just know that the area around Park F has the most interest right now, so maybe something will be moving in that area soon. Next item is, we talked about fiber optic, looking down the road a year or two, and how fiber optic is gonna hopefully be installed citywide. There's some small areas in the city now that have it, but we're looking at proposals to hook the entire city up to fiber optic. How that would come into, how it would relate to the city and this commission is we would hope to have all the city buildings and parks hooked into fiber optic. When they install it, we're asking that whoever the installer is, that they would interconnect all our parks and buildings. And the reason for that is security cameras, Wi-Fi systems. So maybe that could, we could have something like that in the future. So that's in its very preliminary planning. And that's, regarding the Denzer Park, of course, you know, that was delayed. Now there's some more interest again down there from another developer to build some apartments that we had a presentation again last week on. And hopefully that will move ahead soon. But they're in their very preliminary planning stages, looking for funding yet. But so even though one developer pulled out, one is looking at the area again. That's all I have, unless you have any questions for us.
Any questions for the councilman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Workshop?
None tonight. Just looking for adjournment, Chair.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned.